立法會主席。
The President. Addresses. Mr. Tam Yiu-chung will address the Council on the progress report of the Committee on Rules of Procedure for the period October 2012 to July 2013. President, as Chairman of the Committee on ROP, I submit to the Council the progress report on the work of the Committee on ROP during the period in question. First of all, as the number of members in this council has increased from 60 to 70, the Committee on ROP has reviewed the arrangements with regard to question slots for electoral members and also for moving motions not intended to have legislative effect. With regard to the number of question slots, the ROP consulted all members of the council and proposed that at general sittings, the number of written questions should be increased from 14 to 16 and the number of oral questions should remain unchanged. And at sittings where only written questions are allowed, the number should be increased from 20 to 22. On the 20th of March this year, the Council endorsed the amendment moved on the ROP. With regard to moving motions not intended to have legislative effect, the committee agreed that the number of such motion debates should remain at 2 for each sitting, and the mechanism for allocating such lots was also supported by members. And on the 23rd of November last year, the House Committee endorsed the relevant amendments to the ROP moved by the Committee on ROP. We continued to look at the moving of CSAs to bills and also member speeches during committee stage. The purpose was to decide whether the ROP needed to be amended and how in order to deal with the situation of filibustering. The Committee on ROP made reference to the practices of overseas legislatures. The information papers were issued to all members of the council for reference in January this year. And although the committee was of the view that there was a need to specify certain procedures to deal with the filibustering situation, it was believed that there should be discussion by different parties so as to find a solution acceptable to all, and we'll follow up on the matter at an appropriate time. The committee also discussed the issue of outstanding business in the last session and also in this session. In other words, some members were not able to move motions on subsidiary legislation. And we have looked at Cap 1, Section 34 on the negative vetting procedures. We've also studied the relevant provisions in the Basic Law and the ROP. And after we've considered all the impact and all the constraints, we are of the view that Section 34 of Cap 1 can be amended. We'll further explore this possibility and we'll be consulting the administration. And concerning the procedures of committees, we've completed a study on the following issues. First of all, the role of a member in the bills committee, if that member is responsible for a particular bill, and second, on the provisions in the House rules, whereby a member puts to the chairman of a committee that there is a lack of quorum, and third, whether it's appropriate for this committee to deal with proposals to amend the rules of procedure for the Finance Committee and its subcommittees. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to thank members for their support and also their valuable views.
Mr. Alan Leong will address the Council on the report of the Panel on Food Safety and Environmental Hygiene 2012-2013. Mr. Alan Leong. Mr. President, as Chairman of the Panel on Food Safety and Environmental Hygiene, I now submit the panel's work report for 2012-2013 and briefly explain a few major tasks of the panel to members. The subject of the improvement of the business environment of public markets was high on the agenda of the panel. The panel had scheduled 3 meetings in January, April, and July 2013, respectively, to monitor the administration's progress in developing proposals on the improvement of the business environment of public markets, the rental adjustment mechanism, and the air conditioning charging policy, etc. The panel also made 2 visits with the Secretary for Food and Health to 6 selected public markets and received the views of deputations at 1 meeting. To better understand the difficulties faced by the public market store tenants, there was a broad consensus among members that unless the business environment of public markets had been substantially improved, there would not be any ready support for any proposals to adjust the rentals of public market stores. In this regard, the panel requested the administration to conduct a comprehensive review of public market policies and enhance the facilities and operational competence of our markets in order to attract more public to patronize our markets. The government promised to engage a consultant to review the policy, positioning, functions, and usage of public markets, and to revert every now and then to the panel on the progress of the review and the outcome of the consultancy study. Another concern of the panel was stabilizing supply of formula products for infants and young children. Early this year, many local parents complained that they were unable to buy powdered formula for their babies and young children. Some members agreed that there was a need to step up enforcement efforts against parallel trading activities. However, some other members consider that Hong Kong was a free market economy and strongly opposed the administration's proposal to impose export restrictions on powdered formula. Some members opined that it should be the supplier's responsibility to ensure a sufficient and stable supply. The administration should ensure that the suppliers would effectively strengthen their supply chain. Members were also concerned about law enforcement by the Customs and Excise Department. Later, at the request of the House Committee, the panel followed up on the implementation of the Import and Export General Amendment Regulation 2013. Some members were of the view that the export restrictions on powdered formula should not be made permanent and called on the administration to set a timeline to review the effectiveness and necessity to continue with the export control and the implementation of the amendment regulation. Some members were strongly dissatisfied with the administration for its refusal to make public the list of powdered formula regulated by the amendment regulation compiled by the Food and Health Bureau, as well as the enforcement guidelines for the frontline staff of Customs and Excise Department. They urged the administration to exercise enforcement or prosecutorial discretion when dealing with minor violations. The panel also followed up on a number of matters related to food safety and supply. First, the panel discussed the follow-up measures taken up by the government on suspending suspected substandard cooking oil. The panel urged the government to expeditiously amend the legislation to regulate the carcinogen BAP so as to guarantee the safety consumption of cooking oil by the public. The panel also urged the opening up of the live cattle wholesale market in order to bring down the price of fresh beef. Some members requested the administration to introduce legislation to regulate the labeling of organic products to safeguard consumer interests and to introduce a mandatory labeling scheme for genetically modified food such that consumers can make an informed choice of food. The panel was also concerned about the sustainable development of the hawkers and generally considered that hawker policy should advance with time. They asked the government to revitalize hawker bazaars and study and introduce how to enhance hawker policies and management measures. As for on-street fixed pitches, priority should be given to traders' assistance in balloting, and more room for development should be created to allow hawkers to run a vibrant business. Members hope that the government could actively explore the feasibility of setting up outdoor hawker bazaars in every district so as to revive local community economy and boost publicity for tourism while not disrupting or disturbing the public. Members also attach importance to animal welfare. Some were very dissatisfied with the administration's handling of pet carcasses as solid waste. They asked the government to provide cremation service for pet animals and consider extending the cremain scattering services in gardens of remembrance. The panel also studied in detail the legislative proposals to enhance regulation of pet trading. Members offered a number of comments on the regulation of pet tree breeding and licensing regime on pet trading. Members hope that during the stage of detailed drafting of the relevant legal provisions, the government would seriously consider all views received and animal health and formulate balanced options to safeguard animal health and welfare. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to thank panel members for their support. Thank you, Mr. President.
就人力事務委員會2012至2013年度報告向本會發言。李議員。
主席，我謹以人力事務委。
As the Chairman of the Manpower, I'm going to report the work of the Manpower panel to the Legislative Council. The report has already been detailed in the report.
So we just highlight a few important areas of our work as set out in the report. Well, since the implementation of the statutory minimum stage in May 2011, the panel has been monitoring closely the implementation of SMW and also the adjustment of SMW. Some members of the view that a significant increase in the SMW rate would have adverse impact on the business environment. However, some members of the view that it was necessary to review and adjust the SMW rate annually so as to ensure that employees' purchasing power would not be eroded by inflation. The administration advised that as stipulated in MWO, the SMW rate should be reviewed at least once every 2 years and with due regard to a basket of indicators. The administration has provided top-up payments to government service contractors in respect of contracts in 2011-12 to meet the extra government service contract expenditure to cover the increase in wage costs arising solely and directly from the implementation of SMW. These members considered that the administration should continue or would continue to provide top-up payments to new contracts upon recent adjustment of the level of SMW in May 2030. Administration stressed that the top-up arrangement was intended as a one-off and exceptional measure, and we note that the Standing Working Hour Committee was set up in April, and the administration has promised to keep the panel posted of the work plan and work progress of the committee. As regards work protection, we are pleased that the administration has proposed to legislate on providing 3 days of paid paternity leave for members of the public. Some members have asked that it be extended to 5 days with full pay granted. According to administration, the legislative proposals was only the statutory minimum standard, and it would introduce a bill to LegCo in the 2013-14 legislative session as soon as possible. We're also concerned about the definition of continuous contract under the employment ordinance. Some members are concerned that some employers have been adopting a pattern of hours of work or reducing the working hours of their part-time employees to less than 18 hours per week in order to evade employers' responsibilities to provide part-time employees with employment benefits. Members urge the administration to remove or relax the 418 requirement for the purpose of extending the rights and benefits of continuous contract employees under EO and SDWH employees as soon as possible, and the administration has been urged to complete its review. With these remarks, I submit the report. Mr. Wong-fat will present the Council report of the Panel on Development 2012-13. As chairman of the Panel on Development, I'd like to present the work report of the panel for 2012-13. I will highlight some important areas of the report to you.
Within this year, one of the highlights for review is the increase the land supply for the housing production in the short term, medium term, and long term in order to meet the demand for housing. The panel welcomes the administration's measures for the short term, medium term, and the long term in order to increase the land supply for housing production and to increase the land reserves. Members reiterated that in developing land for housing production, the administration should pay particular attention to the implications on the environment and the members of the public. The government should formulate long-term population policy as the basis for development of land and housing. In connection with reclamation outside the Victoria Harbour and the development of caverns, to boost land supply, the panel did meet deputations to hear their views. Some members noted that some deputations expressed concerns over the implications arising from reclamation on marine landscape, and also the other implications. The panel urges the administration to take note of various views. The administration reported to the panel on the Northeast NT New Development Area Planning and Engineering Studies. We had 2 meetings to receive deputations and members of the public. Members expressed their views and concerns over the objectives of the plan and the impacts that this will have on agricultural development and the livelihood, as well as the development model. As regards energizing Kowloon East, the panel supported the long-term organization structure of the East Energizing Kowloon East office as the body to coordinate the redevelopment of Kowloon East. It is noted that there are 500 studios for the cultural and creative industries. The panel urged the administration to get in touch with these organizations and evaluate the impact that this will have on these bodies and assist them in working in situ. Building safety is one of the top concerns of the panel. Within this year, the panel did discuss with the administration the law enforcement regarding unauthorized building works. Members expressed their concerns over the discrepancy in dealing with the UBWs at the peak of the chief executive and also the former CE candidate, Mr. Henry Tang's UBW's at Kowloon Tong. They expressed concerns over the perceived double standard in this regard. In relation to signboards, the panel welcomed the introduction of a regulatory system for existing unauthorized signboards of a particular size and category to be continued after inspection, reinforcement and validation. The panel urged the administration to step up the manpower level in the demolition work and take a more effective enforcement action. In terms of heritage preservation, the panel listened to a report from the administration, and we engaged in discussion over the discovery of relics at construction sites. As regards the establishment of the Heritage Trust Fund, we expressed our views on the consultancy report. We urged the administration to put in place a notification system regarding archaeological finds. The panel did engage the administration for discussion on the sale of hotel rooms by one of the developers and the policy thereof. The members were concerned about the problems in connection with the sale of hotel rooms to buyers, and also the buyers may not be aware of all the rights and obligations once they become owners of these hotel rooms. The panel continue with our monitoring of the development of Nantang and Hyun-wai and the Kai-tak development. We supported the studies, the planning studies of Yuen-han South housing site, and also the quarries at Anderson Road and Lemma. We also made several suggestions. As regards other areas of work, the details are set out in the report, and I'm not proposing to go into minute detail. Thank you, President.
Mrs. Regina Yip will make a report on the Public Service Panel. Thank you, Mr. President. As the chairman of the panel, I submit my report to members, and I will highlight some of our work. In view of the increase in retirees among the civil service in the coming 10 years, and 70% of the serving directorate grade officers are in the age group of 50 to 59.
So the panel is very concerned about the issue of succession. Some members suggest that the retirement age of civil servants should be put back or deferred. The administration has said that various measures have been put in place to help departments draw up succession plans and to provide suitable training for those concerned. The CSB is now conducting a study to assess the issue of retirement of civil servants, and the CSB will also look at long-term solutions to resolve the succession problem. The study should be completed in early 2014. The panel continued to follow up on the employment of NCSC staff and the employment or the use of agency employees. Deputations expressed their views to the panel. The panel noted that in 2012, a total of over 14,000 NCSC full-time NCSC staff members were employed by the various departments, and there were over 1,100 agency employees working in different departments. Members asked the administration to formulate policies to further reduce the use of such staff, and in the medium and in the long term, these employees should be allowed to become civil servants. According to the administration, different departments have their unique modes of operation, and so the government may need to get the assistance of NCSC staff, but the CSB will continue to carry out reviews of individual departments, and when the circumstances are suitable, civil servants will be employed to fill the posts concerned. And then concerning civil service pay, the panel noted that according to the 2012 starting salary survey, the civil servants or civil service grades in most qualification groups have their pay closely mirroring the market pay. So the administration accepted the Standing Commission's proposal to maintain the status quo concerning starting pay. And concerning the 2013-2014 civil servants pay adjustment, the panel listened to the views of the deputations and expressed concerns to the government on the various aspects of the policy-making process. The panel urged the administration to, as soon as possible, review the pay trend adjustment mechanism and to maintain close liaison with staff unions and associations in the process. Concerning dental and medical benefits for civil service eligible persons, the panel expressed disappointment because the administration decided not to include Chinese medicine and under the scope of civil servants medical benefits. Some members were of the view that Chinese medicine clinics should be set up under the Department of Health for use by CSEPs, or there should be a mechanism for reimbursement of fees for consulting Chinese medicine practitioners. A motion was passed by the panel urging the government to immediately review the practice of not providing Chinese medicine service for civil servants. The panel expressed concern about the opportunities of disabled and ethnic minority candidates for civil service posts. Members were of the view that government should proactively increase employing these people, and there should be guidelines to give priority to these groups. And then the panel is of the view that the government should relax the Chinese proficiency requirement for certain posts. Thank you. These are my remarks.
Dr. Lam Tai-fai will address the Council on the report of the panel on education 2012-13. Dr. Lam Tai-fai. Thank you, Mr. President. As chairman of the panel on education, I now report on the work of the panel in the 2012-13 session. The work of the panel is detailed in the written report, so I shall highlight just a few items. First of all, the panel was greatly concerned about the impact of the decline in secondary student population on the development and stability of the education sector and the teaching force. The panel examined the target measures adopted by the government and urged it to seriously consider the 3-2-1 proposal put forth by the education sector to progressively reduce the number of students in each S1 class progressively over 3 years. The panel asked the government to maintain dialogue with stakeholders as well. Some members and deputations called on the government to seize the opportunity of the decline in the secondary student population to extend small class teaching to secondary schools. The panel passed a motion by a vote of 9-4 to urge the government to immediately reduce the class size of secondary schools and to implement progressively small class teaching in secondary schools. In late November 2012, the government announced a district and school-based approach on progressive reduction. The panel would continue to monitor the S1 places in 2013. The provision of 3 years of free Kindergarten KG education was another major concern. Members noted the broad spectrum of views from over 130 deputations and agreed that the government should provide free KG education as soon as possible. Some members were worried that the setting up of a committee to study the issue was only a delaying tactic. The government considered the provision of practicable 15-year free education and enhanced KG education was a major task of this term of the government. If the Committee on Free KG Education is to suggest certain measures in its 2-year tenure, the government will consider trial runs. The panel will closely monitor the progress. The panel agreed that quality education depended on a professional and stable teaching force, and so was very concerned that many teachers were employed on contract terms instead of on regular establishment. Members urged the government to face squarely the heavy work pressure on teachers under the new education system and the new senior secondary school curriculum, and improve the class-teacher ratio in junior and secondary education and senior secondary education. The panel also passed a motion to urge the government to swiftly review and improve the teaching staff establishment and revert to the panel. Concerning higher education, the panel was highly concerned about the development and regulation of the self-financing post-secondary sector. On the proliferation of self-financing programs and over-enrollment or indiscriminate admission of students by individual institutions, members urged the government to set up an independent overseeing body to oversee the body and the sector and implement as soon as possible UGC's proposal in 2010 for a single quality assurance body. Members asked the government to take note of the inadequacy of subvented post-secondary places. It passed a motion to urge the government to hugely increase subvented university places and set up a mechanism to regulate the quality and governance of self-financing programs. As for land resources for education, the panel discussed with relevant bureaus and the Hong Kong Baptist University the rezoning of the southern portion of the ex-Ivy Lee site to residential use. Members understood the rationale of the Baptist U in developing a Chinese medicine hospital on the site. The Bureau remarked that under the existing policy, Baptist U's need to academic space and student hostels had been met, but members said that the Bureau should adopt a proactive and forward-looking approach in striving for education sites for long-term development. The panel passed a motion to oppose the rezoning of the site and urged the government to retain it for education purpose. The panel noted the rezoning proposal was awaiting Town Planning Board scrutiny. Up to early July, the panel held 18 meetings, including 7 special meetings to receive views from 320 deputations on various concerns. May I thank the deputations for their active participation and members for their support in the past year. Finally, we have to thank the Secretariat for sparing no effort in assisting us. Thank you, President.
Mr. Wong Yuk-man is going to report on the task of the IT and Broadcasting Panel. Mr. Wong, as the chairman of the IT and Broadcasting Panel, I'm going to submit the work report of the panel to the Council and briefly talk about several major tasks of the panel. The panel followed up issues relating to the discontinuation of broadcasting service by DBC. Judging from the alleged recordings of DBC meetings circulating on the Internet, some members consider that there was prima facie evidence to suggest that the decision of some of the major shareholders against making further investment to the radio station was a result of political intervention from the liaison office into Hong Kong. Some other members considered the rumor of political interference as pure speculation and that the matter was a dispute among shareholders. The panel passed a motion for the appointment of a select committee to inquire into the issues, and the proposal was put to the House Committee for consideration but was negatived. The panel further held a special meeting to receive views from the public. The majority of the members of public attending the meeting urged the administration to facilitate the resumption of broadcasting service by the DBC. The panel was subsequently advised that the DBC made applications to CA for transfer of shares, and it was approved. The DBC resumed broadcasting service. Next, domestic free television program service. The panel followed closely on the progress of the processing of the applications for free license. The members met with relevant stakeholders to gauge their views. Members were dissatisfied that the administration didn't supply details on the grounds of confidential principle of EXCO meetings. The panel strongly condemned this practice and urged the CE in Council to expedite and make a decision on the applications. The panel also held a special meeting to follow up on issues relating to editorial independence of RTHK and invite interested parties and members of the public to give views on the subject. Majority of deputations held the view that the Director of Broadcasting had interfered with the editorial independence of RTHK. For example, he asked Mr. Forever C, Acting Assistant Director of Broadcasting, to carry out political missions. Some members surmised that Mr. C's refusal to carry out political missions might have resulted in his not getting promoted. Other members thought that there was no concrete evidence to support the allegations. The panel passed a motion to invoke the Legislative Council Powers and Privilege Ordinance to inquire into allegations of interference with the editorial independence of RTHK by Mr. Roy Tang in handling the matter of promotion of Mr. Forever C. The proposal was put to the House Committee for consideration but was negatived. Arrangements for frequency spectrum in the 1.3 to 2.2 GHz band upon expiry of the existing frequency assignments for 3G mobile services was also discussed. The panel noted that the right of first refusal to the incumbent 3G operators for them to retain part of the spectrum, while part of the spectrum would be returned to CA for re-auction, had been proposed for the second consultation. In view of the possible degradation of customer service quality in adopting the proposal, and response to the request of the panel, the administration advised that it was already in the process of appointing an independent consultant to conduct a detailed technical assessment and will report to the panel as soon as possible. The panel also followed up on Internet Learning Support Program. The panel asked the administration to arrange for district-oriented promotion to identify the needy families for the program, and some urged the administration to explore whether there would be more cost-effective means of providing such services. The administration said that a review will be carried out in 2015 to consider the way forward, including the sustainability of the program. The administration also undertook to provide relevant statistics to the panel so as to assess and find out the Internet learning needs among students from low-income families. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank members for their support to the task of this panel, and I would also like to thank the Secretariat for their support.
Mr.
Mr. Vincent Fang will address the panel on the report of the Council report of the Panel on Commerce and Industry 2012-2013. Mr. Vincent Fang. As Chairman of the Panel on Commerce and Industry, I present to the Council the report of the panel in 2012-2013.
Now we've looked at the implementation of the SME funding schemes and support measures. The recommendations made by the Trade and Panel include extending the application period for SFGS, enhancing the cap of the SME Expert Marketing Fund, extending the annual policy fee waiver of the ECIC, and these measures have been implemented. Members also urged the administration and the lending to talk to the lending institutions to reduce lending rates of SMEs so as to reduce the financial burdens of the SMEs. The reference should be made to the need of the trade so as to simplify application procedures, enhance the support measures so as to provide timely support to SMEs. Members also urged the administration to make good use of the $1 billion dedicated fund to assist Hong Kong companies to upgrade, restructure, develop their brands, and expand their mainland markets. Some members suggested to increase the cumulative funding ceiling per enterprise to $500,000 to assist companies to expand in the second and third tier cities in the mainland. The administration is asked to open more design galleries, shop-in-shop, long-term showrooms in major cities to help SMEs to build up their brands, expand their markets. The panel also urged the administration to step up publicity on market information for SMEs and business matching service, organize more high-level delegations to the mainland, the Asia, South America, Africa, and other emerging markets. As for the trade and economic relations with mainland, members urged the administration to work under the CEPA framework and ask for more liberalization measures for Hong Kong's service industries, creative and cultural industry, and test and certification industry. The authority should reflect the problems encountered by Hong Kong businesses in the mainland and also try to provide assistance to trades and industries that suffer more, that encounter more problems at the provincial or municipal level. And we also support the expansion of the ETOs, adding the immigration divisions to the ETOs, and enhance G2G cooperation so as to provide more timely assistance to Hong Kong people and Hong Kong business in the mainland. As for innovation and technology, the panel urged the administration to further strengthen cooperation in R&D with the mainland and provide the hardware and software for the development of R&D, and the administration to strengthen cooperation between the government, industry, the academia, and the research institutions, and to promote commercialization of research findings and transfer of technology. We also stress that we should strengthen our culture of innovation and develop manpower in developing innovation and technology. Upon members' request, the administration has agreed to comprehensively review the Innovation and Technology Fund and similar funding schemes and will consider expanding support to internal R&D of SMEs in order to encourage more investment in R&D by the private sector. Some members are of the view that Hong Kong's expenditure on R&D is on the low side. There should be a timetable to implement the CE's political platform during his electioneering. Government expenditure on R&D should be raised from 0.72% GDP to 0.8%. As for developing the patent system in Hong Kong, the panel urges the administration to implement original grant patent system. The administration has agreed to implement to draw up a plan. It will introduce a legislative amendment in 2015. Members urge the administration to establish gradually substantive examination capability and nurture local talents for drafting and processing patent application so as to promote patent agency service in Hong Kong. Members also urge the administration to promote mutual recognition of patent between Hong Kong and the mainland and between Hong Kong and other places. As for developing IP trading, members also welcome the setting up of a working group on IP trading led by the Secretary for Economic Development and Commerce, and there should be a suitable framework and strategy for making Hong Kong into a hub for IP trading. As for R&D in Chinese medicine, members pay special attention to the compliance with GMP by proprietary Chinese medicine producers. Members are concerned that proprietary if the preparation, the PCM sector is not ready for implementing GMP, the administration should not hastily rush it through. The administration should provide support, including revitalizing vacant industrial buildings and set up a traditional Chinese medicine science park and provide standard GMP factories so to assist the PCM sector to achieve GMP standard. The details are in the written report. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Kwok-hing will address the Council on the report of the Housing Panel 2012-13. Mr. Wong, please. President, as the chairman of the panel, I will give an account of the work of the Housing Panel during the 2012-13 Legislative Council session. I'm going to briefly talk about the major tasks of the panel. There had been notable increase in both property rents and prices. More and more people had found it difficult to find suitable flats in the market at prices which they could afford. The panel, the chief executive announced on 30th August last year 10 short and medium-term measures to expedite the supply of subsidized and private housing units. The panel discussed such matters. On increase the supply of housing land, some members consider it necessary that the administration should appraise the public of the land supply in the next few years and the land reserve which would be available for development. Some members were concerned that the developers had been hoarding land and deferring development, and requested the administration to introduce measures against such practice. Other points raised, including the following. Some members were of the view that more government sites should be used for public housing production. Others urged for redevelopment of public housing estates. Some requested the administration to expedite the development of potential sites into disposed sites and to adopt measures to expedite the conversion of industrial buildings and land for residential use. For production level of PRH, members generally saw the need to expedite and increase PRH production with a view to shortening the average waiting time for the 200,000 applicants on the waiting list. Some members suggested the administration to reinstate rent control. However, some members had reservations about implementation of drastic measures to address the overheated property market or the reinstatement for rent control on account of the implications on the free market economy. They instead supported measures which would reduce housing demand, such as the relaxation of the residence requirements of old age allowance, OAA, and CSSA so that elderly recipients could choose to relocate their homes to the mainland. On long-term housing strategy review, the panel set up a subcommittee on the review, LTHS review, and to make timely recommendations on the formulation of LTHS to address different needs of people from all walks of life. The subcommittee has held 8 meetings so far and discussed 11 topics. The panel discussed extending the HOS secondary market to white form buyers last November. Members were gravely concerned about the adverse impact of this scheme. The scheme may give rise to increased demand and encourage speculative activities, and so undermine the chance of home ownership by green form buyers. The panel passed a motion urging the administration to temporarily suspend the extension of the scheme and conduct a review to avoid pushing up the property price on HOS secondary market. On public housing construction from 2012-13 to 2016-15, according to the administration, in the 5-year period, there will be a total PRH production of some 75,000 flats. The administration will also advance the completion of 2 PRH projects from the second 5-year period, involving 3,400 flats, and so PRH supply will rise to 79,000 flats from 2012-13 to 2016-17. Members were also advised that the administration would fast-track the completion schedule for construction of public housing by shortening the planning and design process from 3 years to 1 year. Members welcomed that and were concerned if sufficient land had been identified for target flat construction. While supporting the compressed schedule, members emphasized the need to ensure that construction safety and building quality would not be compromised. Some members were concerned that in time of the shortage of manpower, the safety should not be compromised, and that public consultation should not be undermined. For the press reports that Cheuk-yan next scheme project H21, would be put up for sale by the end of this year, and the sales price of the residential units would be very high. The panel was very concerned about it. Members were gravely concerned that the housing society, after acquiring a site at low cost and displacing affected residents on grounds of urban renewal, would seek to maximize profits from the project by selling and letting new flats at full market price nowadays. Therefore, members requested the administration to review the mode of cooperation between housing society and the URA and the arrangements for implementing similar urban renewal projects in order to prevent the recurrence of similar situation. Panel also urged the administration to review the role and position of Hong Kong Housing Society in the government's housing policy. The panel was also concerned with measures to deal with subdivided flats, especially the plight of the low-income groups living in such flats. Some members criticized that the prevalence of subdivided flats arose from the inadequacy in the provision of public housing for low-income groups. Although the administration was well aware of the problems associated with subdivided flats, it had chosen to tolerate their existence and did not take actions to eradicate them. Members were particularly dissatisfied about the absence of statistics on subdivided flats. So the panel passed a motion strongly requesting that the relevant authorities should expeditiously provide the number of households living in subdivided flats in the territory and the number of such flats this January, so as to review afresh the public housing production to assist low-income families with flat accommodation. At the same time, the authorities should eradicate subdivided flats in the long run to protect the interests of flat owners. The administration subsequently reported that the survey findings that it has commissioned an independent consultancy to inquire into the matter, and it has also subsequently reported the survey findings and submitted the survey report to the subcommittee on LTHS under the panel. Other tasks of the panel had been detailed in the written report. I would like to take this opportunity to thank members of the panel and colleagues in the Secretariat for their support in the past year. Thank you.
The Honourable Chen Yuen-han will address the Council on the report on the Panel on Welfare Services 2012-2013. The Honourable Chen Yuen-han. Thank you, President. As Chairman of the panel, I present the work of the Panel on Social Welfare Services 2012-13 to the Council. The panel held a total of 17 meetings in this year. Since details of our work can be found in the report, I will just highlight several aspects of our work to the Council. On social welfare planning, members noted that annual platform for consultation and planning for the future development and delivery of welfare services at district level, central level, and advisory committees level on a regular basis has replaced the 5-year plan mechanism. Members considered that the previous mechanism allowed members to review the plans on a regular basis and was flexible as far as planning was concerned. They expressed great concern about the lack of systematic and holistic planning for social welfare services. Members called on the administration to draw up long-term plans having regard to the anticipated demand for welfare services. To facilitate its monitoring work, members requested the administration to brief the panel every 3 months on the progress of social welfare planning. Members noted also that an interdepartmental working group has been set up to review disability allowance. It will follow up on the subject of allowing people with loss of one limb to apply for DA and related issues. Members were strongly dissatisfied that with the absence of a work schedule for the working group and urged it to complete its work and make recommendations before July 2013. The panel will follow up on the issue with the administration. The administration consulted the panel on the proposal to introduce old age living allowance only 2 weeks before its submission to the Finance Committee. The panel was strongly dissatisfied with the tight schedule. On behalf of the panel, I moved a motion to adjourn discussion on the relevant funding proposal at the relevant FC meeting, so as to allow more time for the panel to deliberate on the proposal. The motion was passed by FC. The panel subsequently held 2 more meetings to receive views of deputations and meet with the administration to discuss the effective date of OALA and the income and asset assessment of applicants. Other than that, the panel has also appointed 2 subcommittees to study retirement protection and also issues related to the strategies and measures to tackle domestic violence, respectively. The subcommittees will commence the work upon the availability of vacant slots for subcommittees on policy issues. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank members for their support and participation in the past year. I also like to thank the Secretariat for their full support amongst their heavy workload. I also like to thank all deputations who have come to the panel to express their valuable comments on related issues. Thank you.
2012至2013
The SITHO panel on environmental affairs. President, in my capacity as chairman of the EA panel, I'd like to brief members on the work of 2012 to 13. The panel discussed a number of measures to improve air quality. As regards the administration's proposal to earmark $110 billion to replace the Euro 4 pre-Euro 4 vehicles, the panel members expressed their dissatisfaction that all the vehicles would attract lower ex-gratia payment than newer vehicles, and members expressed concerns over the single vehicle owners. They should be given some assistance. The members felt that there should be a phased implementation. We should get on with the pre-Euro 2 vehicles first before the pre-Euro 3 vehicles. Members also expressed the concerns that the 15 retirement cycle of the diesel commercial vehicles is too short, and they urged the administration to make sure there will be no profiteering on the part of the suppliers. The panel supported the $120 million financial commitment for the replacement of Euro 2 diesel commercial vehicles. The members supported the idea of $400 million for 1,400 pre-Euro 2 and Euro 3 vehicles to be retrofitted with catalytic converters. This will reduce the NOx by 14%, but members urged the administration to monitor the upkeep and maintenance of the devices, and the penalty should be imposed if they fail to do so. And the government should make sure that the costs arising from them will not be passed on to the traveling public. Vessels represent the largest source of RSP and NOx, and they are the second largest emitters of CO2 after the power plants. And the marine vessels represent 4% 40% of the vessels, ocean-going vessels represent 40% of the emissions in the harbour. The administration launched the scheme to mandate to encourage the ocean-going vessels to change to cleaner fuels, and there would be a reduction of the port facilities and light dues by half. The administration should introduce this measure on a compulsory basis, but this has to be done in the context of the PRD, otherwise the logistics industry will suffer. The administration said they would consider introducing this measure, and there will be discussion at the panel meeting on the 22nd of July. As regards the introduction of light diesel for local vessels, members supported the idea, but some expressed concerns that if low sulfur diesel becomes the only source of fuel, the price will go up. Members urged the administration to consider subsidizing the ferry operators, lest the costs would be passed on to the consumers. Members urged the administration to conduct more studies on fuel efficiency and engine models. We will be inviting the members of the public to add their views at our panel meeting on the 22nd of July. The administration will bring in the AQHI to replace the API and offer health warning. We welcome that. Well, I'd like to add, President, that the bill has been enacted just last week. In relation to waste, we discussed the quantity-based charging of MSW at the meeting. There are three options. If waste charging is to be introduced, rates should be reduced to avoid double taxation. The government should introduce a phased charging system. There should be a waiver at the first stage. The charging should be revenue neutral. The revenue collected should be passed on to the users who have been effective in reducing waste. We also discussed the landfills. We had a public hearing for that. Members expressed concerns on the Southeast NT landfills and the impact on public health. The problem stemmed from a poor planning on the part of administration, and if we ask the Cheuk-yan residents to bear the consequences, it would not be fair. Some criticized the fact that notwithstanding the larger scale of the Northeast NT compared with the Southeast NT, the administration merely introduced measures to mitigate the impacts of the Southeast NT, but not in the Northeast NT, to look after the interests of the residents in Tai-fai and Twin Wood. Members expressed dissatisfaction. We endorsed a motion to object to the Southeast NT expansion program. In April, we visited Seoul, South Korea, on a duty visit to have a look at the experience of waste management, including source reduction, recovery, and treatment facilities. The delegation was composed of 12 panel members and 5 non-panel members. After the visit, we set up an exhibition for the honourable members and the media, as well as the members of the public. We set up a subcommittee on air, noise, and light pollution within this term in order to offer better protection for public health. We've held 9 meetings, in 3 of which the subcommittee invited German scholars to share the expert views on these various subjects. I'm grateful to all the scholars for their participation and members for their hard work. I'd like to express my thanks to honourable members and Secretary for the hard work. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Kam-lam will make a report on the work of the Transport Panel. Mr. Chen, please. Mr. President, in the capacity of the Chairman of the Transport Panel, I submit the working report of the panel and will highlight the major points in the report. In this year, the panel continues to monitor very closely the affairs of public transport which affect people's livelihood. The members of the public are concerned about the review of the fare adjustment mechanism of MTRCL, and the review is completed this year. The administration reported to the panel the results. The panel notes that the fare adjustment mechanism, that the new fare adjustment mechanism will adopt a transparent approach in adjusting the productivity factor value, and an affordability cap will be put on fare adjustment. There is also the service performance arrangement, in which the MTRCL will be penalized for serious service disruptions. The fines will be used to finance the 10% same-day second trip discount. Furthermore, the MTRCL will set up a profit-sharing mechanism to provide fair concession, and it will also introduce various monthly pass programs. Members are divided with regard to the fare adjustment mechanism review. Some members welcome the outcome because the proposal has taken into account many factors, including the increase in fare is limited to below the change in monthly median household income in order to take into account affordability. It has introduced a penalty mechanism to ensure service quality. It has also addressed people's aspiration of sharing the profit of the MTRCL. Some members are of the view that the new measures are too mild and cannot achieve the desired effect. Some members urge the administration and the MTRCL to provide bigger discounts to frequent travelers on the MTR, so that they can and also expand the profit-sharing mechanism. As for bus fares, the KMB applied for fare increase to the extent of 8.5%. Members were generally dissatisfied towards that application and were of the view that 8.5% increase was too high. Some members pointed out that if approval is given to KMB, it would increase the financial burden of members, and it would lead to similar fare increases by other means of public transport. Some members criticized KMB for adopting financial tactics to support the fare increase. Members urged the administration to review the formula for fare adjustment of franchise buses. KMB, as for the service of KMB, members are of the view that the government should conduct surprise checks on bus frequencies and announce the results. Members also suggest that the bus company should make use of information technology to record the arrival time of buses to calculate the lost trip rate. The panel notes that after consulting the panel and the TAC, the CE in Council, on the 19th of February 2013, approved the fare increase of KMB with an average increase of 4.9%. And the new fares come into effect on the 17th of March 2013. The approved magnitude increase is 40% less than that has been applied for by KMB. The administration has also consulted the panel on the fare increases by urban taxis, NT taxis, and Lantau taxis. In view of rising costs and inflation, the actual income of taxi owners and drivers have declined. The majority of members support the fare increase proposal. Some members are very concerned about speculation on taxi licenses, and they are concerned that fare increases will only fuel speculation. They think that the fare increase may not benefit the rentee drivers because the owners may increase taxi rentals, therefore offsetting the possible income increase arising from fare adjustment. Some members of the view that the administration should introduce a tiered system for taxis and allowed better equipped taxis to charge a higher fare. They also urged the administration to increase the number of gas stations so as to reduce waiting time. Within this year, the administration consulted the panel on the 6 outlying ferry routes. The administration proposes that in the next license period, i.e. from the middle of 2014 to the middle of 2017, 6 outlying island ferry routes will be provided with special helping measures so as to maintain the financial viability of ferry service and reduce the burden on passengers. Members note that the administration will increase the special helping measures in the next license period from about $115 million to $191 million. The panel supports the administration using public funds to provide special helping measures so as to maintain the financial viability of ferry service. As for road traffic management, the administration has briefed the panel on traffic diversion among the cross-harbor tunnels. Some members support the administration's proposal of reducing the toll of EHC and increase the toll of CHC so as to divert more traffic from CHC to EHC. Some members are concerned that the measure the effectiveness may not be sustainable. The administration explains that it will effectively bring relief to traffic congestion of CHC before 2017, and it can also bring relief to non-cross-harbor traffic around CHC and EHC. The administration also says that upon the completion of Central Wenchai Bypass by 2017, there will be further improvement of traffic, cross-harbor traffic. Members also urge the administration to consider building the 4th cross-harbor tunnel or a bridge. Other work of the panel is listed in the report. Thank you, President.
Question
1, Mr. Cheuk-yan.